Today marks the 5th anniversary of his confession to his first love. They have come to sit on this worn-down wooden bench every year since, until this morning, where it marked the 1st anniversary of him sitting here alone. The last time the two got in contact was when the bench was still newly painted 366 days ago. Not because it was leap year, but because she sent a message to him the night before the annual celebration, saying she had to leave for a trip to Europe. He followed up by asking why. She never responded. About 15 minutes ago, a European friend of his, the same friend he had introduced to the love of his life, wrote an apology to him saying he was the reason he's looking at the autumn leaves by himself. In exactly 1 hour, those two, now living together almost 10,000 miles away, will be having their first anniversary dinner at a restaurant next to a park in the south of France. It was the same restaurant where this presently single man fell in love at first sight with her. 11 years ago, they were working in a movie production there. She was the director, and he was the sound recordist. Last midnight, after learning of his new undesired life, he went back to his tape recordings of her, shouting action, cut, and, at this rate, the shooting would never wrap. His favorite quote of hers, however, was, "Hey sound guy, the microphone is in the frame," because he thinks it was the first time she ever noticed him. As a matter of fact, he was playing that part on repeat just now. When he walks back home shortly later, he would see an envelope at his front door. Inside contains a medical document diagnosing his grandfather of Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, a type of brain disorder that leads to memory loss, then death. On the back, in his grandfather's handwriting, is a list of requests for 2 sound recordings. The first being the sound he wants to remember, and the second being the sound he wants to forget. Every birthday back at home, he and his grandfather would hold a competition at the beach during sunrise. They were born on the same day, October 12th, only 50 years apart. Today is October 11th, which means they will turn 22 and 72 tomorrow. His grandfather was the one who always taught him that the average male's life expectancy is 71 years old, and to live even a day older is a daily miracle. Since last year was also their last together before having to stay on opposite sides of the world, they held a final competition, and the loser had to make a lifelong promise. He lost, and promised to build 1 sandcastle for each year his grandfather went over the average lifespan. In 24 hours, the first sandcastle will be built without a winner or loser. In previous years of the tournament, he never gave it his all and built the ugliest pieces of sand architecture imaginable, thinking that the waves would soon come take them down. His grandfather, on the other hand, constructed each castle more beautifully and painstakingly as the years went by, and when the sun fully floated over the horizon, they were already nowhere to be seen. He would ask the old architect the same question every time, why he built such big and beautiful castles, just for the sea to make it forgotten. His grandfather always had the same answer. The ocean never forgets, and the waves always come to shore with what they used to take. Imagine how many sandcastles are swimming in there. Remember together forever. Once you're diagnosed with CJD, it takes 1 day to forget the happiest moments of your life, 2 to forget the names of your loved ones, and 3 to forget your own. When his grandfather wakes up in a few hours, he will have forgotten that he and his grandson ever had the same birthday, let alone a sandcastle contest. After 1 more night's rest, his grandfather will forget the relationship entirely. The whole reason the old man started this tradition was because his first competitor was his wife. She died from Alzheimer's 10 years ago, and the annual competitions are his grandfather's excuse to build her a castle every year. He also lost her the last time they got to compete, before she could no longer remember his name. Humans forget everything, but the waves forget nothing. No matter if you're a grandson or a grandfather, the sound of water hugging land remains the same. Your birth didn't make it louder, and neither is your death going to make it quieter. The same way a song reminds us of the things we did while it was playing, The ambiances of nature are background music to the conversations we had. When things around us move on with their lives, but we haven't, we hear them like an instrumental without any lyrics. The leaves are parting ways with the autumnal trees and gliding along the grooves in the ground like a stylus on a record. It's only that this single is about the tragedy of a rusted needle, scratching the wax and ruining it in the process. At the distance of 4 continents and 4,000 spoken languages from here, sunlight had just left the mountain and reached the hospital bed where the lights went off. His grandfather's remembrance of him and his poorly constructed sandcastles along with it. Most poets would say the grass is greener on the other side, but as he sees it, the pathway is paved by foliage is probably redder and more yellowish there in the French Riviera. It's a bittersweet wonder how a road full of roses for those with love, or one of blood for those with none. Sometimes I just close. Ultimately, it's true that chrysanthemums can mean life and death at the same time. The smell of sandalwoods can also send one into a state of glee or grief, depending on where it's placed between a vase and a grave. His grandfather used to tell him in another fall 10 years ago that the wind whooshing through branches is the accumulation of whispers through lifetimes. And I'll find your bracelet. I just have to try. If you listen closely, you'll hear every secret that's ever been told. And the sky is so open. And the wind is heading south. But if you truly feel what the wind has touched, you will begin to hear your own secrets. I'm just gonna close my eyes. The same day he learned this lesson was also the day his grandfather went to the park where his wife told him her first secret. The secret was that she fell in love the second she saw him the first time. One time in a cast. They would keep no secrets from each other for 44 more years until she had no more to share. With turrets aglow. During the past decade, his grandfather has visited the park 10 times alone just to hear one last secret. When coming home to his grandson after only having heard the wind, he would always tell him that his grandmother is waiting to tell him on the seabed. So carnations will grow. It was so that they would always remember. And I heard you were worried. Sometimes white noise becomes a ballad when it's the only sound connecting you to a point of life you wish hasn't passed. From a shell by the sea. A stranger, the same stranger I met on the beach, used to stop me in the streets to give me his bicycle, telling me to pass it down to the person I came across on accident twice, because then it would not be an accident. So I left him my bike with a note, and he rode away with it in silence. Later that evening, the doorbell rang with the second envelope sliding in. Inside was another medical paper, at the front saying not to open until he's heard everything there was to hear. Folded below were 3 photographs with the declaration for him to play the soundtrack to their first and final film together. The sound of waves started surging off the tape to accompany an image of the first sandcastle his grandfather ever built, with the date listed as October 10th and a message, "For you, my first sandalwood." As the cassette was swapped out and the secrets were whispered by the wind, he flipped over the second photograph, revealing a portrait of him and his grandfather at the local park. It was of the two putting their ears next to the trees together on the first anniversary of his grandmother's passing, taken exactly 3 seconds ago, 10 years back. The tapes have run out, so he came to the place where he knew I would be, not on account of coincidence, but a predestined fate. On account of us listening to the same voice. I was there, and I told him that his grandfather and I first met here. Whatever the last picture would tell him, I left him to figure it out by himself. Only now, the score was being performed live. Opening the single remaining photograph, opaquely sealed unlike others, it was his own sandcastle, from his first competition. He won that year, because it was before he ever considered the fraudulent futility of building a faded wreck. It was also the only year where he really understood the meaning of this contest. Don't forget how to live, my second Sandalwood, written over it on October 13th. That is tomorrow, and by sunrise, his grandfather will have been a stranger to himself. He should be having his last remembered dinner right about now. Except that the doctor's notice says he has heard his wife's final secret. Precisely 1 minute before his grandson read the first letter, he was already one with the wind. He was washed away by the waves. I don't know how it feels to talk to a ghost, or more realistically, a memory, but this was the closest anybody could get. Maybe the wind was her the whole time. Maybe the waves are him speaking to us. But one thing I do know is that this is not his last sandcastle.